I just shared my webcam, so to say hi to everybody, that at least you see that the guy who's on the picture here is the same that is actually talking to you. But as not to distract anybody, I will just turn it off again. So you have seen me right now. Now you see me, now you don't. And I'm going to start with today's topic of my talk, which is Umati Initiative, Universal Machine Technology Interface Connecting the World of Machinery. And when you imagine the situation that we have today in manufacturing, that means a lot of machines, a lot of interfaces, and usually those machines will not understand each other's because they use different interfaces, they speak different languages. And if you want to integrate them in IT ecosystems, and if you want to do that to have benefit and added value from data, this is getting really difficult because you need an adapter for every individual interface. So what is the solution to overcome that? Well, the solution, first of all, that we can look at is there is this thing called OPC UA, which is an open communications and interoperability standard. Basically, it is giving you something like the same language, and you can define how those devices should communicate with each other. So that means when you're talking in OPC UA, it's basically more or less the same than we are talking, or I'm talking English right now, and we're using the English language, so that at least machinery is talking in the same language. But this is not enough because, as you certainly know, when you're a professional engineer, you will have an easy time understanding other professional engineers. But probably if you go to a doctor or if you go see a lawyer or some other professions, they're using different dialects or dictionaries. So on top of OPC UA, you can use the so-called companion specifications, which is defining contents for different technologies, for different applications, all using the same language, but they use then the same dictionary, which is appropriate for whatever they are doing. So there is a machine tool dictionary, there is a robot dictionary, there's a whole bunch of them. And I've stolen a slide from our friends at VDMA, the Mechanical Engineering Association. And VDMA is one of the largest associations representing all different sectors of the mechanical engineering industries. And here you can see all the variety of sectors they are addressing. And you see all the nice little boxes around this. And if you just look for the orange and the blue boxes, that means every of these technologies is at the moment writing their own dictionary with respect to their technology. So there will be an OPC UA companion specification for food processing, for laser systems, for pumps, for power transmission, for textile machinery, for woodworking. And this is very nice. And this is also very important because this is giving you a base of interoperability. And the even better part is that all these initiatives are harmonizing themselves at the moment to have an identical content, for example, for machine identification, because it really doesn't make a sense to distinguish between a robot or a plastics machine or a machine tool on how to identify the machine. But this is just giving you a basic specification, and then on top of that, you have all these bunch of specifications, which is the basis for what we call semantic interoperability. That means the machines can understand each other, but it's like if we are in Germany talking somebody from southern Germany to northern Germany, maybe there is some difference in the dialect. So even though we are in the same language, it leaves us room for interpretation. Standardization always does, because it has to be neutral somewhat for the application. And in the end, standardization is not enough to reach out to the global market and to the customers. So putting something on top of OPC UA is very important. And this, what we put on top here is Umati, the Universal Machine Technology Interface, at the moment sponsored by VDMA and VDW, which means it is open to participants from all around the world. But for the moment, for the time being, somebody has to pick up the check and to organize things. And this is something we from the German industries do. But as you will see later, we have already integrated a whole lot of friends and partners from all around the world. Now, what is the value that Umati adds to this OPC UA interoperability? it's basically two things. The first is the companies that are underwriters of Umati, they have agreed that they want to contribute plug and play to their customers. So we try to get rid of the interpretation that, the room for interpretation that the standardization leaves, and we say, okay, we have this bunch of specifications. There will not be a universal specification in place because the need of different technology groups is too different. But we, as the machine builders, will work together to realize plug and play by making it possible that the implementation is as identical as possible. And the second aspect is that we need to have a global community, because in the end, a machine tool builder will talk to the customers that buy a machine tool. A plastics machinery builder will talk to the customers that buy plastics machine, and a robot manufacturer, and so on. But in the end, at the customer side, they have already process chains involving different technologies. And that means when it comes to connectivity, so to connect and gather data, it doesn't make sense for the individual profession to talk to the customer individually, but you need some kind of framework around it that is able to provide some added value that fosters the use of this kind of open standardization. So what are we going to do? We are going to bring machine builders and users together. So on the one side, you have all these nice, I hope my animation is coming soon. You have all the nice machine builders represented through associations or working groups that work on standards. And on the other side, you have the users, which usually have different technologies, different machinery within their shop. And Umati as an initiative tries to resolve the following issues. As I explained, we are working on the promise of realizing plug and play, so you can take either machine from the left-hand side, either ecosystem on the right-hand side, and you will make it as easy as possible for data to flow into the ecosystem of the user. That means we have to agree on identical implementation, and this is something that goes beyond standardization. It is more agreements, for example, on how to set ports, how to set safety standards, how to deal with cybersecurity, how to deal with user access management, and so on. So this has to be agreed on, even though if it is not possible to make these agreements within an OPC UA standard. The next thing is we have to prove the functionality in a showcase, and later on I will give you a brief glimpse into the Umati at EMO 2019 showcase, as I suppose we are addressing a machine tools audience today. We had a quite interesting showcase at EMO, and I can enlighten you what the benefit of this showcase was. And certainly the next thing is going back from the users. It's like the saying by Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State of the US. It's like, who am I gonna call if I want to talk to Europe? It's the same here. Who am I gonna call if I want to talk about interoperability? Do I have to talk with all the individual technology guys? Or is there maybe a central organization that is here to gather my feedback and then bring it back into the single and diverse standardization and working groups? The next thing is certainly share the best practices and also share the lessons learned, because we are moving in a highly dynamic environment here, which means, yeah, everybody's making any mistakes, and we have to make sure that we spread this experience so nobody's making unnecessary mistakes twice, and that we also can foster the best practices to get a really steep learning curve also with the smaller customers that would like to simply make use of this technology and make use of data without worrying overly much on how to extract the data from the machines. And last but not least, no standards are feasible or worth anything if they don't have international acceptance. So even starting this initiative from the German side and specifically with machine tools in mind 2 years ago, we were always saying we need to be open for our international partners and certainly for international competitors. because we believe dealing with connectivity on OPC UA and fostering this kind of connectivity so the customers can reap benefit from extracting data is nothing proprietary, it is nothing national, and it will only be able also to withstand the larger IT companies such as Google or Amazon if there's really a broad international community that is working together for the best of the customers. Please, again, if you have any questions, just drop a line into the questions window. You know, it is always hard in this kind of format to see if you get the audience, if you leave any questions open. So please, if there's anything unclear, shoot at me. Our partner scenario means for the moment we have collected a wide variety of companies that are supporting this kind of idea to have universal connectivity via OPC UA and get together in a marketing and community that can address customers. And as of today, we have 125 partners, most of them leading machine tool builders in leading manufacturers and companies in the field of machine tools. This is because Umati started out as a machine tool initiative. But since beginning of this year, we have broadened the horizon together with VDMA to address the needs of the entire machinery industries. So unfortunately, many of the trade shows that we would have wanted to use to promote Umati and give a hands-on experience at those trade shows was not possible due to the coronavirus pandemic. So I'm sure within the next months, this partner sheet will fill up with many more very prominent companies from all other sectors that are represented within VDMA and even beyond. This is now to address the companies that are thinking about why would I want to become Umati partner. It's like, hey, so OPC UA is in the world and it is for free. And why should I be joining another initiative? And maybe there's somebody wanting to make money with it. I don't know. So what's in for me? Why I should become a partner? And certainly at the moment, we have to say Umati is sponsored by VDMA and VDW. So they pick up the check. They have the interest of the German industries or the European industries to address all the global partners and to promote OPC UA standards. But in the long run, certainly, if Umati is there to stay, we will have to transfer it into a organization that can last and in the end can also finance itself. But for the moment, just to say it out clear, we don't have any price tag. We don't have a business model because we have to see how this community evolves. And we are sure if we deliver the right benefit, then there will also be a motivation to also share the cost and the burden of promoting Umati. So your benefit as a partner, as a partnering company, will certainly start with saving cost and effort and improving your products. And you're prepared for the future because you can use reliable and open interfaces that are approved by customers and by a great community. So you're not dependent on a very individual proprietary standard of, for example, a controls manufacturer or even a larger IT conglomerate, but you can rely on something that is part of a community of machine builders to help their customers. And there's also a logo, so a brand, a label, like you know these labels in your computers, for example, where you see that you have, for example, the Energy Star, or that you see there's Intel inside or something. So you can prove you're part of this group by using a logo, by really advertising that to your customers. That gives you easier access to the customers because it's not only you explaining what connectivity based on OPC UA means, but in trade show showcases, we will all be standing together. So that makes it much easier to send the easy, understandable messages that will in the end find the ear of the customer and awake the customer to demand this kind of connectivity. This also leads to market stimulation. this leads to a much faster evolvement of the use and the adoption of these standards in the market. Certainly, we can demonstrate what plug and play means and what the benefits are by demonstrations at trade shows. We need to have this global community I've talked about, and certainly as a community that is working together, we can give you exclusive information and tools, best practices, how to implement things that are also going beyond the standardization of a neutral standardization platform. I'm just seeing a question here. Maybe just answer this question right now. So can a data consumer, somebody who supplies a visualization tool for Umati data, also become Umati partner? Yes, absolutely, because we do not only address the makers of machinery, an ecosystem for the benefit of customers also involves the makers of these kind of, let's say, data usage implementations. And certainly we are also foreseeing that the receiving end is also part of this community as well. You can see it a little bit in the next slide I have here. So how does the thing work? I said in the center there's OPC UA standardization. And when you look at the little picture I've given you below here, that means you have this VDMA base companion specification for machinery. You have individual specifications for machine tools, for plastics machinery, robotics, machine vision, and so on. And then you will have specialized companion specifications, for example, for cutting machinery, for woodworking, for laser. In the Euromap plastics machinery, you already have the different die cast and extrusion standards. So the thing is, Umati wants to provide a frame that all these standards can use the same, we call them default communication requirements. So we put something on top of the standards so they all communicate identically. And certainly on the receiving end, we need all those, let's say, added value suppliers that are able to read all these specifications in their software. We believe, while the one thing is implementing something on the machine that usually is in the market and doing its work for 10 or 15 years, the easier part should be if you have a software ecosystem that is able also to read heritage specifications. So we have to rely on both ends, on the machinery side and also on the implementation into brownfield, which becomes easier once you have a penetrating standard, and on the other side, on the software, which is able to use the data that can be harvested through these kind of companion specifications. And to demonstrate to the customer that this is going together, we are promoting the Umati community. The last couple of minutes, I just want to give you an impression, because data is abstract. You can't see it, you can't feel it, and you can't even, or it's hard to sell the added value. The best thing is if you can have customers that have a hands-on experience what that means. So at MO Hannover, we had a showcase based on the preliminary specification for machine tools, where we connected 110 machines with 20 software solutions, and our partners were 70 companies from 10 countries. And so we had really a crisscross interconnection. This is just the number of partners that had been taking part in this use case in September 2019. I'm giving you a little layout here, so you see basically at all the halls in the Hannover Fairground, we had some connected machinery, so you could even go there live. We had our own booth, which had received very prominent visitors from even the German government. We had given a press conference. We had a social media campaign. But in the end, it boiled down to a customer experience that was realized in a way that the machines were all connected via a data hub, which was courtesy powered by Deutsche Telekom, and all the 28 software solutions could read the information of all the 110 connected machines and then demonstrate them in their way they are doing it. But what we also did is every machine featured a little sticker with a little QR code, and we had a web app at the address https umati.app. And there, everybody could just walk up to a machine, use his own smartphone, scan the QR code, and land on a page where you would see immediately what this machine would be doing. And we even had historic access where we would show what the entire, let's say, production at the fairground would be doing. So from the first minute, any interested customer could see how these different machines of different makers come together in a very simple demonstration purpose, but nonetheless real demonstration system. We had a variety of very limited use cases for machine tools that we showed. And for us, the most important thing is 110 machines and 28 services under trade show conditions. And everybody of you knows trade show conditions are very hard because it's a non-permanent setup, which starts with building networks and bringing the machines there to get everything running in time. It was based on OPC UA, and we didn't have the need for any direct interaction between interacting partners. Usually the interacting between the software guys and the machine builders to define the interfaces is a very tedious procedure, and there was absolutely no need to do this. And we had a 6-day stable connection with the data hub, and for us, this was a wow moment, that even in the very complex environment of machinery and factory equipment, it is possible to realize through plug and play, even if it is not as simple as you would see in all the computer and personal IT devices. Now, my last slide is what is next. As I said, unfortunately, I cannot show you any live presentation right now because the live demonstrations we had planned are victim to the SARS-CoV pandemic. That means also we took the time to remodel and rework some of our technological and infrastructure part. But we are planning on showcases like a virtual demonstration in September, which will feature most of all the newly or the release candidate of our machine tool specifications. We will also be back to some trade shows, hopefully if they can be realized in the second half of this year. And we are even projecting showing things to you at the Hannover Fair next year. And we are currently working on the first other technologies like plastics, robotics, woodworking, and vision to also integrate them into our ecosystem and our dashboard. And I would just like to invite you to be part of it. And we are really open for any new partners. And if there is any need for information, just contact us or contact me. You can receive these slides, and so you have my address, so feel free to contact us. And as I didn't talk about OPC UA technology, there is a series of VDMA webinars featuring all the prominent OPC UA technologies under development right now. Unfortunately in German only, but for those of you who want to listen into a German presentation, I've given you the website, and on 7th of July, we will talk in depth about the OPC UA for machine tools. This would be it from my side. I see another question which would like to answer right now. The question was, how can we enable old machines to use the new companion specification? Well, brownfield adoption, we have learned, is probably going to be a nice new market also for smaller companies. You have to distinguish two things. The one is if you have an OPC UA specification, you have the dictionary and the semantics of the data you want to send out. The hard part that usually remains with the machine builder is that you have to come up somehow with the information behind those signals. So if you imagine you have a stack light, which is green, yellow, red, blue, whatever, and blinking or not blinking, you have to collect those signals within your PLC or within other controllers, and then somewhere put them onto a system where you can have an OPC UA server running that will now then send the data out into the standardized format. So when you know which signals you want to have and you have an old machine, I think there is various ways you can imagine. If the old machine already has a digital interface, you can see if you can program a connector that taps into this old interface. Certainly, it cannot provide you all the data that is foreseen in the specification, but in sometimes it's just enough to get a very limited set of data to already reap a benefit of knowing the status of your machine. And I think if you really have really old machines, maybe you have to wire some things and have a small added PLC there to maybe get the information directly out from the old controller and hardwire that into a PLC. And then in the end, basically, the challenge is always how to get these signals out of the machine. Once you have these signals, then it is really easy to also, for old machines, send things via OPC UA into whatever receiving party you have. Okay, I just have to adjust my window because it cut off a little bit of your question here.
I can also answer or show you the question. We have the question: despite the trade show use cases, yes, are there any other installations planned at user sites currently?
Okay, thank you. Well, the thing is, at the moment, I know that some of the companies that have been part of the EMO showcase are in discussions with some of their customers or with other partners to have a permanent installation at a customer site. Unfortunately, this is not yet, let's say, information to be published. We have a couple of larger companies that have a huge interest in just demonstrating how OPC UA interconnects across different technology sectors. And we are discussing with them what we can do, but definitely we cannot talk about it right at the moment. From the machine tool perspective, this is also due to the fact that our machine tool OPC UA companion specification has just been released as the final release candidate 3 weeks ago. So until that date, there were only preliminary versions of the standards. So nobody from the user side wanted to invest any money in making things based on a preliminary standard. And with respect to all the other technologies, well, we're in the progress of integrating them into the demonstration capabilities. So there are some plans at the moment. I cannot show you anything, unfortunately. Looking at the ticking clock, it tells me we have about 1 more minute to answer some questions. Well, if there are any other questions, please feel free to write me an email. If I get a whole bunch of questions, just my excuses if I cannot answer anything within the next couple of minutes. And if you have any other questions, I would say you're always welcome to discuss with us. Thanks. Greetings back to the WZL of RWTH Aachen.
Now we have a short question again about the data hub. Do you see the question, or should I read it out?
No, basically the question is about the data hub. If this is going to be a platform solution, something like Adamos, or an open source solution for software services, for software service providers to integrate into a solution. So when we, so if any of you has to go for the next meeting, sorry, this answer is going to take a little longer than 20 seconds. When we started the initiative that is Umati today, we, for political reasons, had to omit everything that touched into the platform business. So when we talked to Telecom for this data hub, it was the pure need that we needed somebody for infrastructure and data handling in the showcase at EMO Hannover that I showed you. And you can imagine doing all the networking to get 110 machines and 28 software solutions together, have a scalable server platform, do all the encryption with VPN and so on is a thing where you need a capable partner. So at the moment, from our side, it is not foreseen from our side to turn this data hub into a usable product. But you can be sure that our partners at T-Systems will take their knowledge to kickstart a product that they can use in the context of their data intelligence hub. I mean, in the end, it's a win-win because they have done some front-up investment to support us, so they should be able to reap the benefits. But in the end, we are totally open. So what we're trying to do is to foster open connectivity via OPC UA and help get the customers kickstarted on becoming or having a profit from data. We will not prescribe on which platform, and certainly we are open to all community activities that will establish platforms which are open, which are more or less neutral, and which can be also used in an, I would say, environment of trust, because everybody has the experience that in the personal surroundings, how we are treated and how we treat data when it comes to our iPhone or Android phone. And we know that in the industry, people are way more sensitive towards the use of data. So we are open to everything that has or that delivers a level playing field. And we would encourage everybody, if you want to do some kind of platform to use this kind of data, you're welcome. We are open to everything. So
perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alexander, for the interesting presentation. Thanks all the attendees for your attentiveness and also your questions. If you have any more questions to Mr. Broos, you can contact him anytime. Otherwise, thank you for attending these sessions. There are more sessions going on during the week, and we hope to see you in one of those or else at METAV 2021 in Düsseldorf, Germany, when we're hopefully back on the present fairground. Until then, have a good afternoon. Goodbye.